Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Listeners Lounge, a place where we get to kick back, relax, and not necessarily dive into a movie 1 minute at a time, but we get to chat with some really cool and interesting people 1 moment of their lives at a time. I'm your host, as you heard from the open, Alan Sanders, joined as always by my co-host, Walt Murray. Walt, good day to you, sir.
Good day. I was wondering which part of the day you were going to choose.
I need to rotate through like every other episode, like good morning, good evening, good night.
Well, and the way things are right now, I can't really keep up.
Yeah, no kidding.
It all kind of bleeds together.
Well, and then like my wife was already lamenting, the days are starting to get shorter. It's going to be night sooner. I'm like, I love it. I'm like a vampire.
I do too.
Bring the darkness on.
Well, I love just sitting outside, get a fire going in the fire pit, and enjoy the cold weather. And so, yes, my time of the year is coming.
Yeah, this is. Of all the seasons, I don't know if we've ever had a moment where we asked ourselves this question, but I got to ask you, we've got 4 basic seasons. Of course, in Georgia, one would argue you've got 2, but
we got 1.
But in the 4 seasons, which one would be your favorite?
Oh, definitely fall. Definitely fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. So I guess we're stuck forever as podcasters, partners, because that's it for me. I'm a autumn person. Something about the leaves changing, the knowing winter's coming, the cooler nights. Eventually going to get colder, driving with the windows down, the fire pits at night, eventually fireplace weather, getting ready for the holidays. I mean, all of that, the fall is what starts it for me.
Well, I'm also a cold weather sports fan. I'm a, football and hockey. So both of those, you look forward to fall coming.
You're also that particular individual who we always see wearing shorts regardless of how cold it is.
Right. See, I don't understand these people who I'm going to put on jeans. No, enjoy the cold. It's wonderful. I'll wear a sweatshirt and shorts.
On the flip side, I'm the guy who's wearing jeans in the heat of summer. People are like, what are you wearing jeans?
I know. And it's funny because I'll show up at the radio station in January. There's snow on the ground and I'm in shorts and y'all are like, what is wrong with you?
Shorts and maybe a hoodie,
Well, that's the best.
My ears get cold, right?
Well, yeah, and you can't have your ears getting cold. Legs, fine. Ears, no. So.
Well, you're just one of those. You've always been like that, though. Since I've known you, you're a heat generator. I bet you're great when, when the power goes out. The wife probably goes, "Walt, get closer."
Well, I have to sleep. I can't sleep with blankets. It's usually a sheet, and that's about it. But I mean, I grew up playing ice hockey. I grew up skating on ponds and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I've just never left that.
Well, and, if that's what you're used to, I grew up in Detroit. I don't know if I've told this story on any of our shows before. I know I've said it in my radio world, but it was the weirdest thing. When we got relocated in the mid-'80s, we moved from Detroit straight to Atlanta. And needless to say, Detroit gets its share of cold winters, lots and lots of lake effect snow, lots of wet snow. I try to explain to my kids what it's like when a massive snowstorm comes. You watch the weather forecast and realize, okay, for the next 6 hours, every hour, we got to be out there reshoveling the driveway so we can keep up with it. And people are like, what? What are you talking about? When I moved down here, I think it may have been high 80s, maybe 90 degrees. I got on my bike and I started riding through the subdivision. I'm like, how do people survive in this? And it took me about 3 years to get used to the heat. Now, unless it gets closer to 90, 98, 99, close to 100, I'm comfortable.
But yeah, once it's over 95, I'm kind of done.
Yeah, when I went back up to Detroit not that many years ago, my wife, as a surprise, got me tickets for she and I to go visit my lifelong buddy, Eric, who was with us, Eric Wojciechowski, getting ready for the ufology conference in Detroit. When I went up there, we had a light snow, and we went to go tool all around the places I grew up. I'm like, look like freaking that kid in your Christmas Story. I can't even put my arms by my side. I'm wearing so many layers. I'm like, wait for me. And I'm like, it's freaking cold. And he's wearing like a t-shirt, jeans. And I just completely lost my cold weather blood in favor of being able to handle the heat now.
Well, we moved here when I was in 5th grade, and I still haven't lost mine. I went up to Boston in 2010.
Now, let's be clear. You have a few more layers than I do.
I do. I carry a beer layer. I carry a barbecue layer. I do have a little bit more insulation.
They always talk about the spare tire, but you'd be more like those big, construction truck tires.
I'm more like a spare person.
Here, hold Jeff for me.
I'm the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
But, but in some respects, though, that does give you that ability to handle cold a lot more easily than me.
Oh, it does. It does. And I've actually lost a little weight. And so I'm kind of wondering how this winter is going to go as I keep losing, how that's going to
the problem with losing it is you keep finding it again.
I know. Well, what I have learned, what I have embraced, this is not real medical science. It's that you make a change. And when you say change, that's like ongoing. That's not just until you lose to where you want to be, but it's a lifestyle change. So that's what I'm really working on right now.
Well, you know what? And all kidding aside, that's the right way to do it. My wife, who's a personal trainer, as you know, has said, it's like her mantra. Diet is not something you do short term. Diet is what you eat for the rest of your life. It's
That's
your
right.
diet. It's how you choose to eat. And you can't just say, well, for the next 6 months or the next 6 weeks or the next year, I'm going to do X and then I can go back to normal. Well, don't be surprised when everything comes right back, if not worse, because your body will snap back into those old habits.
Yeah, and it definitely does. Well, and speaking of, life choices and stuff like that, have I told you how stupid I am lately?
Well, some things are self-evident, but I'm always interested in letting people, admit some things. And so we're all around. Walt, it's your turn. You've got the conch. What do you think?
Okay, so following in your footsteps.
Oh, wait a minute. You're implicating me now.
Yes, I am, and you'll know why in a second. Okay. So Heather, my middle daughter, comes to me the other day and she said, Dad, I need to talk to you about something. There's something that's really bothering me. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is it? She pulls out her phone and she says, nobody has come to look at this dog at the shelter. And I'm like, well, I know. And we're not going to do that. So long story short, Moose came home with us on Friday.
Oh, I saw the picture your wife shared. What a great dog, though.
He is awesome. He is, there's no way they say he's between 6 and 8. He's probably like 2 because he's still not used to his legs being long, and he'll run across the yard like a total spaz. And he is just an awesome dog, but he's so big and his bark is really, really deep and it'll just shake the whole house. So when he realized we have a cat in the house, it was like, oh my gosh, everything of value is now going to get destroyed.
I've never had a play toy that moved on its own.
Exactly. And Star is not happy about that. So, but so we now have a Moose who is well named, very aptly
Are you
named.
keeping that? Like, they always give him temp names. Are you keeping that?
His real name, or his name at the shelter, was Reinhardt. And,
okay.
And we looked at him and Mary goes, his name really should be Moose. We were like, yep, there you go. His name is now Moose.
Oh, I like it. Now, you know what's funny? You mentioned him being like this big old giant tank. Yeah, I don't know if you ever played the first-person shooter or know anybody who played the game by Blizzard called Overwatch. One of the characters you can play is called Reinhardt, and he's a big, giant, armor-clad tank.
Oh, that must be where his name came from.
Goes charging through doors. It's a Reinhardt.
Well, I assumed that they found him somewhere near Reinhardt University, which is
could be
near.
You know what? That's probably what happened. But in my mind, mine's more fun.
Well, most of the people who work there are kind of like mid-20s or so. So I bet I wouldn't be surprised if that was it.
I wonder. We'll have to bring somebody on sometime from a shelter. I wonder if they do that, where they go through, okay, this month we're going to name all the dogs we bring in after street names that we grew up on. Or this week is all movie characters, just so that way they don't run out of names.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I don't know how they do that.
This month, welcome waffles.
Yeah, this dog, I don't know what they'd have named him. But he is eating everything in the house. He went through a bag of they send you home with the 8-pound bag. He went through a bag of Science Diet in about 2 days. I'm like, no, you can't just open the bag and let him eat. You have to regulate.
No, you're gonna have to control that. Yeah, we've got one like that. We call him Riley, but he's like our Hodor. I don't know if you ever saw Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah.
He's like the goofball but gentle giant. If he would eat himself till he like got sick, he would just not stop. You have to control it for him. He's just too food.
Yeah. See, that goes back to my diet issue. That's what I'm stopping doing too.
Pizza aisle.
Oh, another Waffle House. I must stop.
At the grocery store, there's Walt like halfway into a freezer, just
Halfway.
Walt, you didn't pay for that.
Hey,
I will.
If you're going in, you go all in.
Go all in. Well, before we bring our guest on, and I brought up Detroit and Michigan for a reason, I'll make that evident as we go. We've got Dr. Don Green, who is the president of Georgia Highlands College in the state of Georgia, a college that routinely gets listed as one of the greatest values in return on investments as far as 2-year and 4-year degrees. I've watched this program continue to grow in my years and getting a great chance to know him, having been involved with Bartow Leadership, bringing school kids by and having a chance to interview him multiple times. So I'm really interested in bringing him on. But before we do that, I want to give you this one little thing that I've decided to do because we're not part of a gym. My wife is a personal trainer. She's got weights downstairs, but I don't know what it is. I find like she's always got people down there, so I just end up having good excuses to not go use equipment. And I saw our good friend Kristen Gates, who came on earlier this season from 94.9 The Bull. She was doing things on her Instagram account where she was doing the 100 push-up challenge. Have you heard about that?
Yes, I watched that every day.
I bet you do.
I have not participated.
Now, see, this is when you watch Kristen, you go, thank God it's not cold yet.
Yes, absolutely.
But with the 100 push-up challenge, I guess for 100 days, try to do 100 push-ups in a day. It doesn't have to be all at once, just 100 push-ups a day. So I started that Monday. I'm on day 3, and I don't want anyone touching me. It hurts. It hurts so bad.
I bet it does.
I've got 25 more to do today, and I'm just trying to figure out how I can make this interview last longer. I know we've got a hard stop because our guest has he's going to be given a speech and some recognition for one of the campuses, I think 50th anniversary. We'll get him to talk about that. But I'm going to see if I can convince him to like skip that so that way I don't have to go do my last set because it's only day 3. I'm waiting for when I get like used to it.
Just do like 5 at a time. And
well, I'm trying to do, I started the first day, I did them in groups of 20 and then I moved up to 25 yesterday. And so I'm keeping 25 today. So I got one more set of 25, but it sounds so easy. You're like, well, I can space this out. Dude, I'm telling you, I feel it, and it's actually not that hard to do. I told Kevin, my morning show producer, he started doing it yesterday, and he said, okay, so you're a day ahead of me, so I'm looking at you at what I have to look forward to the next day.
Yeah. Well, I have planned to do it. It's just not one of those things I've gotten to. I swim. I've started swimming every day, so I don't want to screw that up with getting myself into so much pain that I can't get in the pool. So I'm trying to work
I
on that
remember the
cardio.
stories. Herschel Walker said he used to get up and do 100 push-ups every morning. Didn't do anything else.
So Herschel, from what I understand and what was written in Sports Illustrated one time, is he never lifted weights ever. He did all push-ups, sit-ups, isometric kind of stuff.
Yep, all core kind of exercises, all whole body. But man, if I could look half as good as Herschel Walker, I'll keep doing it.
So I met Herschel Walker one time when I was at the University of Georgia, and he was, I think they're finishing his degree, the nicest guy in the world.
He's awesome.
The nicest guy in the world.
Speaking of nice guys, that's it. Enough blather, enough catching you up. Let's bring to the stage, to the Wilder Ride Listener Lounge, our guest, Don Green. Welcome.
Hey guys, how are you?
Hey,
Good
Don.
afternoon.
Great to have you joining us here on the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Lord knows, as far as career paths go, you are far busier and actually, you're far more impressive in what you've accomplished in your life than I think the two of us combined.
Oh, please. All I know is I was really excited about the intro. So I want to talk about shorts in winter. I want to talk about Georgia not really being cold. A reference to Ghostbusters, love that, and fitness pain. Not to mention a dog that is behaviorally challenged. So we can go any direction you guys want to go.
Well, that's a relief because having the president of the university on a podcast that I co-host is like having the drug dog on the Cheech and Chong podcast. So, so that's kind of a relief to me.
Let's start first at the beginning. Let's get the audience who you are. Obviously, we've got your name down, but give us a quick just overview. Where did you start? Because you've got a Michigan tie-in yourself.
Absolutely. I grew up in a little tiny town north of Detroit, up 53 or Van Dyke, which no one in Georgia is going to know what that means. But I grew up in a little town that had more cows than humans and no traffic lights. In fact, my parents, neither of them graduated from high school. My mom eventually got a GED, but when I was very young, they started impressing upon me the importance of going to college. They said, we want you to live a different life than what we've lived. And I planned on attending college. I really didn't plan on working in one. So that changed a little bit. How much
before you
know?
do that, I got to know what town, because I grew up, first of all, I was born in Detroit. We lived not too far from the 8 Mile area for a little bit, moved out to Troy, and then eventually we were in the Rochester sub area of Shelby Township. So we were off 24 Mile and Mound Road, DeQuinder, in those areas. So where were you? Because I know Van Dyke very well.
Oh, this is going to get obscure really fast. So then you go up to Romeo, then you go to Elmont, then you go to Emily City, and then you eventually get to a little tiny town called Brown City in the middle of the thumb.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Excellent. Well, I love the fact that we both hail from Michigan and we're both in Georgia.
Yes, because we both figured out that it's really cold in the middle of winter up there.
Yes.
And there were better places to be.
Okay, and check me on this, because for folks who live in areas like the South that never get snow, am I not telling the truth about having to have the hour after hour when you got those big snowstorms keeping up with the shoveling?
Oh, absolutely. And then when you tell people that your low-pitch roofs had to be shoveled so that they didn't fall in because of snow weight, people think that you're kidding. You have to actually pull out pictures and show them.
People can't imagine what it's like. We lived on a bus route, and those plows would, if you put your car next to the curb or along the street, you might as well get ready to dig your car out because they didn't care.
Yeah, or you're just going to get it out in the spring.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, now that we established some of that, your parents kind of nudged you more toward higher ed. That doesn't mean most children don't necessarily take mom and dad's advice to heart. Most want to rebel. So what's your story when it comes to that?
I like learning, and I recognized pretty quickly that the best pathway to a high quality life and success was through education. And I love professional sports, and I love seeing people who do amazing things on basketball courts and football fields and baseball fields. But high percentage return, good gamble, good bet, get an education, and you're going to do far better for yourself. And frankly, I didn't want to spend my entire life living in a town that had no traffic light and more cows than humans. So I headed off to Michigan State University and finished my bachelor's degree there, and then went on from there. And
now you're in the Bartow County, Georgia, that has actually more cows than people. Yeah, people don't know that because we got a lot of goats and chickens too, but you just don't notice it as much because we stay in the city.
Well, and the question I have is one that somebody at your station has asked on the air before: is how many cows are there in the county?
Yeah, we're not going to do a Joe Tilley thing here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you need to get a hold of Joe Tilley, and you guys can maybe do a census.
So how did you end up? Well, where did you go from there when you finished at Michigan State? Did you stay in that area, or did you move on?
Well, no, I went on to Ohio State. I got an MBA. I was going to work in industry, and I started out working in manufacturing. In fact, I was running a human resource department in a manufacturing company and running a couple of apprenticeship programs. And one day, a guy called me up and said, I heard that you have an MBA, and I'm just curious if you would ever want to teach a college class. And I said, maybe. When does it start? And he said, tonight. And I thought about it for a nanosecond and I said, I'll be over at lunch. Went over, picked up the textbooks, picked up a sample syllabus, went to the class that night. And when I got home, I couldn't sleep because I was so jacked. I was full of adrenaline. And somewhere around 2 or 3 in the morning, I rolled over and I said to my wife, I think I found what I really want to do with my life. And she said, that's great. Go back to bed. We'll talk about it in the morning.
I was like, at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, she said,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, let me ask this, because you said you were asked to teach a class. Was it a business class? Was it an economics class? Do you remember what the class was?
Yeah, I think that one was actually a human resource class. So it was comp and benefits and hiring, selection, all of the different pieces that are part of running an HR department. And I loved it. The students had a great time, and the dean stopped by toward the end of the semester and said, we really like having you around. Would you like to come to work full time? And I said, well, how much are you going to pay? And it was a drop in salary. And I said, I don't care. This is cool. I love doing this. And so I took a cut in pay and made the leap and just took off from there. And I've loved it ever since.
Okay, so that begs the question, you're moving from the business world and having an MBA and a background in business to now the college classroom. It's one thing to be a professor. It's one thing to teach. It's a completely different thing to start moving toward administration and eventually toward being in charge of an entire campus. So when did you make the switch from wanting to teach to wanting to be more of an administrator?
Well, it happened almost immediately. And the reason was the first position that they offered me was both a teaching position and also, oh man, now you're making me think back, director of instruction for a program that was specifically for non-traditional, so adult non-traditional students, working adults who were going to do evening classes in an accelerated program. And I jumped in with both feet, had to create a complete new faculty, had to organize all the curriculum, and I just loved every minute of it. And in fact, even to this day, I love curriculum. I love the development of new degree programs that can unlock new opportunities in the labor market for students. And if you're wondering what the heck does that mean, over my career, I've created degree programs in digital animation and video game design. In fact, I think that was one of the first 12 programs in the nation at that time. Digital media software engineering, molecular diagnostics, which is kind of genetics and personalized medicine, logistics and supply chain management. We now have a new fintech program at Georgia Highlands. I didn't create that one, but I just love keeping up with where the labor market's going and building new degree programs that are going to give people a new opportunity and really give them a chance to have a monster career.
What amazes me, the opportunities that are there now. My daughter is a sophomore in college, about to be a junior, and the opportunities that she has for learning are unbelievable compared to what it was like when I went through. And a lot of that has to do with technology. So I guess as you were coming up, that had to be a great training ground for what's going on in the industry right now.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. One of the things that I really want to do is make higher education accessible for everyone. I don't care who you are. There are those opportunities for you to be able to pursue new learning. That could be a certificate, associate's, bachelor's, it can be any variety of different things. I mean, I'm really intrigued now because if you haven't heard, Google has a couple of non-credit certificates that they're creating. So we're going to see just amazing innovation in higher education. It is really poised for technological disruption in the future. There is no doubt about it.
In terms of where you are, and we'll get to kind of like your position and how you transition down here, but since you are talking about developing curriculum and talking about the function of how do you make sure you teach something, how do you impart knowledge to a student, whether that student is a younger person or maybe somebody who's going back to school as a non-traditional student, I mean, like, how do you determine, like, what are those building blocks to developing a coursework or a curriculum or a regimen that prepares somebody for a workforce that changes sometimes every 6 months in terms of technology.
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head. As I was kind of reflecting and thinking about the kind of questions that you might ask, one of the things that I was considering was how challenging higher ed has become, because the speed at which you have to develop new degree programs and develop new curriculum just continues to grow. It's just like all technology. It's going faster and faster. And the demands out there in the labor market are going faster and faster. I mean, one of the things that we're also seeing is, when I was growing up, people would refer to me and folks who were younger than me as the MTV generation, because we could only handle snippets of like 3 minutes at a time, and then we would lose our interest. Well, now you're talking about doubling and tripling of that speed. So a lot of it comes down to how do you build chunks of knowledge that can be building blocks, as you said, to be able to build one on top of another. I'm a big believer in career ladders. So go out and get yourself something, an associate's degree perhaps, that will get you employable, but then look around, begin to explore what excites you about the labor market. Where might you wish to go next? And the beauty is when you can build laddered programs so that you can build a bachelor's degree on top of an associate's degree that gets you further, and then maybe a master's degree on top of that. I can tell you, Alan, you like to refer to me as Dr. Green, and that drives me crazy, as you know, because I'm not one that is all about the title. But when I left my master's degree, I was like, yeah, I'm done. I will never see the inside of a classroom again. I'm off to industry, and I'm going to be a corporate baron, and, this is going to be amazing. And so where do I find myself? Back in school, getting a doctorate, and then ultimately working as a president for a college. It's interesting, never assume where life is going to take you.
True. Now, what's your PhD in for the audience's benefit?
So it's in human resource development, but it also has the cognate in leadership studies. So all those great books on leadership theory and transformational and transactional leadership and all the other great things, I had to study all of those to the nth degree.
So here's a question for you, because we are now in a very weird mixed workforce. I even notice it as a parent of children who are technically very, almost not even millennials anymore, almost the Gen Zers.
Yep.
And when you start talking about the workforce today, you can have, if you've still got an older person above you, you may have an older Gen Xer, you may have then a Gen Y, you may have a millennial, and then a Gen Z. And every single one of them almost is motivated by completely different things.
Absolutely. You're 100% correct. So if you are leading an organization, what it comes down to is what's in it for me? What's in it for each of those individuals? What motivates them? What makes them want to show up and perform? And if you're trying to cram some square peg into a round hole, you're going to struggle. But if you can get to the core desires that a particular participant in your workforce has, you're going to be way better off.
Don, one of the things that I've seen over the last 2 years, I work kind of on the edge of the human resources world. We do a lot of pre-employment background checks. So I get a lot of emails from those organizations that support HR. And one of the things that I found interesting lately is I get a lot of notes about, we're going to have a class to teach older managers how to manage, Generation X and beyond. And it's almost like there's a totally different worldview for those 30, 35 and under up against those who are 35 and older. Do you see that as you're educating people and working to get them in employment?
Well, I don't even have to go to work. I have that in my household, So I have an oldest son that I call a millennial. My youngest son finds that to be just outrageous when I refer to him as a millennial, because he does not identify. He is Gen Z, so very different. They all have their own motivations, but I can tell you that it is not uncommon for young people to just simply say, why do you work so much? Why is that your priority? And for my wife and me, we said, well, that's how we were raised. We were raised by Depression era parents. And
Right.
it was a different expectation and probably a different perspective on what was quality of life. And, you can, I'm no different than anybody else. I'm not immune to complaining when my kids are more interested in experiences that are beyond the work world. When they say things like, yeah, I'm thinking about taking a sabbatical. A sabbatical, you're 28 years old. But you have to step back and ask yourself, whose life is it and what are their expectations for it? And if you want to try to make them fit your mold, you're going to end up being frustrated, and so are they.
But I find myself that there's this fine line between saying, okay, I get it. You don't like or value work or hours like we do as far as generations. You still got to pay the bills. You still have responsibilities.
Right.
And you find that fine line of like, how do you motivate somebody whose motivational path is not motivated by a hard work ethic? I mean, that's from a leadership teaching perspective. How do you tell somebody why, yeah, I get it, and that's fine when you're not working, but while you're at work, you should be really focused?
I find that both with my workforce, the younger people in my workforce, but also with my family, they're incredibly motivated. They're just motivated for different reasons. It's not always about the next promotion. It's not about the next pay raise. So, for example, at Georgia Highlands, I am impressed every day because our people show up for the students. And that may sound cliche, but it's real. I mean, when you hear stories about the success or the opportunity that you've created, the fact that you may have saved a student who thought they were going to drop out because they just didn't see the point. It's heartwarming and it's motivational in a completely different way. It's not necessarily about the title. It's about really serving others. And I've had to step back and learn that there are a myriad of reasons that people go to work, and they're not always what you would traditionally think of as the rewards or the benefits of a job. Later on, you're going to ask me about what I've been reading, and I hate to jump ahead, but I've been reading this book called Happy by Design, and it's by Paul Dolan. And he's a researcher on happiness. And he says that so many researchers on happiness historically have measured joy, fun. But he really says there's an X and a Y axis to happiness. And the other one is meaning. And I was going to say,
if I was going to try to predict, I was going to say satisfaction, but maybe they're similar.
Yeah. Well, satisfaction is gleaned from meaning, from actually doing something that serves perhaps others, that serves humankind, but it's not always about just income, or it's not always about title or position. It's not about upward mobility. For many people, it's just about serving others and seeing others succeed.
It's almost like all these books that have been written, we can go back to the age-old adage that I heard from my grandparents, just do what you love and the money will follow.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, I mean, really,
it seems simplistic,
short.
But it is true.
Yeah. Life is too short to not do something you're passionate about.
That's an interesting thing, because for the first 10 years or so of my career, I worked at a large corporation. And
hey, me too.
And Alan knows exactly which one that was. And there was a real weird thing that I saw in the people who were older than me that made me leave that company.
They look like members of The Walking Dead?
They were The Walking Dead. And I watch those people come in like drones every day, sit down at the desk, do the exact same thing they've been doing for 25 years. And they all had this countdown clock on their computer that was their countdown to retirement. And I just
That's sad.
I told a friend of mine, I was like, I will jump out the window before I become this. I cannot do it. And I finally just said, the next 6 months of my life, I am going to find something else to do because I can't do this and I can't have that mentality. And I guess it's fine for some people, and they knew where they were going. They knew it was important to them, but I couldn't do that. That did nothing for me. And it really I was like, oh Lord, please don't let this be me. Cause I just couldn't imagine that. And even though what I do now, I mean, I love what I do, but there are really hard days. But I still look back and I go, no, this is so much better. And because it's me, it's my personality, it's what I like doing. And I think finding that path, finding that thing that makes you happy, that thing that you were created to do is so important. And other people can't really impose that on you. And I think that's kind of an interesting perspective that you give there.
That's a great deal of wisdom that you just provided, Walt. Kathy, so my wife works in career development, career education, or did for many years. And we've had this conversation so many times because we've run into so many folks who said, well, I only have 4 years, 3 months, a week, and 6 hours before I get to retire. And it's like, really? That's how you want to spend that time, just counting down? Find something that you're really passionate about, and it stops being hard work. I mean, it is hard work. You're right, Walt. It is hard work, but it's so fulfilling.
Yeah, I try to explain, and I've said this on the radio several times, and obviously you do. There's a realistic component where I'm not going to be so Pollyanna in the conversation to say, well, if your dream is to be a video game player, go do it. I mean, at some point you still got to pay the bills, right? But if you can figure out, well, maybe I can do something in the video game industry, or I can find a job that has some kind of a relevance that makes it feel like I'm doing something, and who knows what doors that opens up. And I say all the time, there are more things of value than just currency in your life. It's memories, it's satisfaction, it is serving others or solutioning. I'm a big person who finds great satisfaction if I can help solve a problem. If I can come in and consult with somebody, or if I can say, well, here's a way to tell this better, or here's a way to show it in a different way that makes it more understandable or conveys your message more, to me, that's exciting. And how do you put a price on that?
I've had this conversation with parents so many times over the years. So you mentioned video games and playing them. But when I created that program in video game design, and that was, oh my goodness, I hate to think, 20 years ago now, I would have parents that would come in with a student to check out the program. And the parent, especially fathers, would be visibly angry that they were there. And so I would let the student go off with the department head, and I would just have a conversation with the parent, and I'd say, so what bothers you about this? And invariably it was, well, I'm not going to pay for my kid to get a college degree to play video games. They're not playing video games. They're designing and developing them. And did you know that at that time, that's a $20 billion industry, and now it's far bigger, you know? And there are so many other applications that we're starting to use that same video game technology to perform, like teaching people how to fly an airplane, teaching people how to do surgery, and every other variety of really technical forms of employment. And it all started with video game development.
You know what's mind-boggling? I just got done watching a Netflix documentary called High Score about the history and the evolution of the video game, that the video game industry is worth more or generates more revenue than the movie and music industry combined.
Yep.
And a lot of people go like, wait, what?
That I had no idea. That is mind-blowing.
EA, Activision, Blizzard, look at what their stocks have done over the years.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Those companies are on fire.
You bring in things like Rockstar Games, and now you may not like the games, these open world environments, everything from whether you're playing the Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, Grand Theft Auto. You know, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of real issues with it, but it's incredibly popular.
It massive. And we have to think about it. It's not just sales in one country or one state. It's worldwide.
Yeah.
So, okay, this is a great side conversation we're having, and I love this because we haven't even gotten to how you got to Georgia Highlands College.
Okay.
I'm trying to keep an eye on the clock as well because I know you've got an event tonight.
I will give you the Cliff Note version of it. So fast forward, I am a vice president at Ferris State University in Michigan, and I started with 2 units that I was responsible for and a number of satellite campuses across the state, and was given this tremendous opportunity by the institution to innovate. And so we completely rebuilt International and started having students from all over the country, and we created an academic incubator to develop the next generation of career programs for the next generation labor market. And I was just having a ball, but there comes a point where you can build another department, another unit within your division, but it's kind of the same old, same old. And I was kind of griping about it. And my wife said, then take your own advice and go find something that you're passionate about. And I wanted to go someplace where I could really make a difference in lives. And my wife wanted someplace where it was warm.
I'm sick of something.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So you put the two together, and the University System of Georgia was looking for a president for Georgia Highlands College. I came down, fell in love with the institution, its mission, what it accomplishes. And I said, yeah, I think I really want this. And ultimately, the USG decided they wanted me to.
And you have been a fantastic add to that system. Now, Georgia Highlands College wasn't called that initially. Do you know some of the history of how these smaller sort of almost 2-year degree programs kind of became a conglomerate under one label?
Yeah. It started in Floyd County as Floyd College, and a group of dedicated citizens back in 1960. Well, they started in the early 60s petitioning the university system. And then ultimately in 1970, they were able to offer their very first set of classes as Floyd College. It was completely and only a 2-year institution. From there, they have had 3 presidents. And each of them have taken the institution a little further until me. I'm the 4th, I guess I should say. But and continued to grow it, including new sites and new degree programs. We now have 7 bachelor's degrees, and we're continuing to work on others. But I'm very proud to say that you can get an entire 4-year bachelor's degree for $16,000. That's
Good grief.
That's a semester at a lot of other schools. Not a year, a semester.
Yeah, at private school, yeah, that would be a semester. And for many public institutions, many larger universities, that could be 1 year. Yeah.
Hey, I sent 2 kids to UGA, a public university. It ain't cheap either.
No, it is not.
And in fact, my youngest goes, I see how in debt my older sisters are, and the fact that mom and dad are saying, yep, we're carrying the other half with the old Parent Plus program. Maybe I'll go to a different school.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you a great story about our faculty. We did some studies, and we found that there were a number of students who have financial issues who were struggling to attend Georgia Highlands simply because of the cost of textbooks. And so our faculty got together. They all agreed on particular texts that they felt were important for their particular classes. And then they started looking at alternatives to traditional textbooks. There are a number of folks out there who author textbooks and choose to do so not to make money, but simply as a service to the public. Rice University ranks the top 10 institutions in the nation who use these alternative textbooks. And a couple years ago, when the last time that they did this ranking, I think, don't hold me to this, but I think we were 6th in the nation. So the first year we did this, we saved our students $2 million in textbook costs. And we have gained $200,000 every year since then. So when last we did this, the numbers we had saved that year, we saved our students $2.8 million in textbook costs by using alternative methods.
Wow.
And that wasn't the administration. That wasn't the president. That was a group of faculty who cared.
So how many students do you have on campus?
6,000.
That's on campus, you said. They've also got a great virtual program and off-campus program.
Yeah, well, let me clarify. That's 6,000 total, because in the land of COVID, we've got students who are face-to-face 100% on campus. We've got students who are in remote learning where they are using Zoom, and it's synchronous learning, so it's just like being in the classroom. There are students who are flipping back and forth. One day a week they're in class on the ground, and one day they are online with Zoom. There are students that are 100% online in asynchronous programs. So, technology is providing a variety of choices for students to fit their busy schedules.
So as you look at the next 5-10 years in the education world, what do you see happening? Do you see more online, or do you see people still wanting that face-to-face? I know in some of the research areas you probably can't do it all remotely, but what do you see developing out of all this?
Well, you are absolutely right. There are a number of classes where we just feel that being there in person is extremely important. So there are a lot of science labs where we're doing that kind of work. We have a robust healthcare program. And obviously for dental hygiene or for nursing, you need to have folks working in hospitals and working in the real world, if you will. But with technology, we are seeing far more applications that are bringing a greater sense of reality to a digital environment. And that's just going to continue to expand. We will see more and more of those kinds of technology applications in the future. And really that means that learning can become ubiquitous. You can live anywhere eventually and still be able to get the kind of instruction and learning that you need to be able to move forward with your career and with your life.
All right, I need to make sure we hit a couple of subjects on this whole education piece, interview piece, before we move on to our other segments. I have daughters, all four took advantage in their high school years of dual enrollment. And because I know a lot of people will be listening to this that have kids, a lot of people are like, and other places of the world going, wait a minute, what is this dual enrollment? So I want to talk a little bit about that, and then about how there's a difference between a high-priced college price tag and a college that gets you a return on your investment that you can't beat. A lot of times when you look at high dollar signs and think, well, that must be a really good school. They're going to get a really good job. And then you start getting in the real world and you realize, except for the Harvards and the Yales, sometimes the employer doesn't care where the degree came from. It's can you actually do something with it? So can you kind of cover those two pieces for me?
Well, actually, you've got about 6 pieces in there, Alan. But
but okay.
I'll try to hit a few of them. So the first one, even Harvard and Yale. So there is a young lady who was a family friend of ours back in Michigan, and she had a dream to go to Harvard for dental school. There's nothing wrong with that, but do you really check to see where the diploma is from for your dentist, or is it more important that they have the appropriate licensure and the appropriate degrees in education?
Hey, I'll be honest, when it comes to any of those things like doctors, actually even lawyers, when it comes to dentists, chiropractors, I'm looking at what are they getting reviewed online and what are the people saying that go there, I'm looking at how do they perform their job?
Absolutely. And so really what we want to find out is, even if it's Harvard and Yale, where can I go and pay a reasonable price and be well educated so that I have all the knowledge, skills, and ability that I need to be able to perform? And that's extremely important. These days we see students across America who are graduating with so much debt that it's a second house payment. And I am very proud to be a part of the university system of Georgia, where they push us hard to keep tuition and fees down. It's extremely important that we do that. But also in the state of Georgia, because I'm sure you've got listeners all over the world, in the state of Georgia, there's this amazing opportunity for students that is called dual enrollment. And a student who has the appropriate GPA and is capable of doing the learning can attend college classes while they're in high school and can now, through the current rules, complete 30 credits before they graduate from high school. And that's no cost to the parents. And if you do that within the university systems institutions, all those credits transfer to whatever USG institution you might wish to attend. It's really valuable. Now, even better, if you come to Georgia Highlands and you do the dual enrollment plan, and maybe let's say you want to go to Georgia Southern to finish your bachelor's degree in engineering, do the entire associate's degree at Georgia Highlands. So do that first, the equivalent of the first year of credits through dual enrollment. Do the second year and finish the entire associates in the pre-engineering program and spend $4,000 for that second year, and then transfer the entire associate's degree and get the same bachelor's degree in engineering from Georgia Southern and save a ton of money.
I think everything about, and that's why I wanted to have you on. It's why I've been so happy that I got a chance to meet you when you first got here, won the position. I knew you'd been interviewed, and we've had several interviews since. We didn't even get a chance to talk about leadership, Bartow, and how you work with the chamber when we bring our student groups through. But I wanted parents to hear how important it is that it's not necessarily the name. Get the kids that college experience. Let them in high school if they feel like they can handle it. My girls will all tell you, hands down, yeah, I may have missed a few of the social things in the senior year. Every one of my girls said, I was so much better prepared for what the workload was like, the expectations, and the fact that you don't have tons of every night busy work like in high school to pull up a bad grade. You could focus on the paper. You could focus on the test. You got treated like an adult, and they all have excelled so far anyway, knock on wood, in college. My youngest just starting right now in the fall. So I implore parents, if your child feels like they can handle the workload, check and see if there is, depending what state you're in, if there is a dual enrollment program with a university. Because my oldest daughter graduated in 4 years from the University of Georgia in Athens, but with 2 full degrees. Didn't spend 5 years, didn't have to do anything different. Actually took a lighter course load because she had a lot of dual enrollment classes. She also had a lot of AP classes where she passed the AP test with high enough scores to qualify for some exemptions. My second daughter, she graduated with a full-on degree in 3 years. She was able to save an entire year of tuition because she had enough credits that she was basically a sophomore when she started. That's value to a family, to a parent, and to a new student who's going to eventually be in the workforce.
Well, one thing I saw with my oldest, Caroline, she did that as well. And when she actually walked onto campus as a freshman college student, she had the confidence to know that she had what it took to be a college student, and was able to get that confidence within the confines of still being at home and still being a high school student. So I think it's a fantastic program.
I would agree entirely. I have to provide this offer to all your listeners too. So I'll give you one example. There is a church in Rome, Georgia, and they have a youth group. And 2 months in a row for their youth group meeting, they have my wife and me come and just spend about an hour and a half with parents and students answering every question you ever wanted to ask about higher education, but was afraid to ask because you thought it might be embarrassing or that somebody might judge you for it. If your listeners have questions, I don't care if they live in Nova Scotia, call Georgia Highlands College. Just check on the website, look for Georgia Highlands College, call the president's office, leave me a voicemail. leave me your cell phone number. I'll call and we'll have a conversation. Because there's nothing I like better than helping parents and students to really get on the road to success.
Awesome. I think that's incredible. We will probably have to figure out sometime in our next season how to bring you back, because I know we didn't cover nearly enough. And honestly, we could do an entire session on just leadership and how do you become a good leader and what are the things you've learned, and do some of the things you learned when you first started still apply to where you are in your career today. That all these kinds of things that we just can't get to. We just don't have enough time.
I've got more questions now than when we started.
Right, no kidding. Before we wrap up the interview segment, though, you're getting recognized here, and actually at the time of this recording, for a campus that has been in existence for its 50th anniversary.
Yeah, actually, the entire college. College has been around for 50 years. So, first graduates, 1970. Actually, I guess the graduates were in 71 for that first associate's degree. And so we are celebrating 50 years, and a variety of different governmental organizations are making proclamations just celebrating our 50 years. And we're excited to go around and meet with those various groups and thank them for their proclamations, and also just talk about what the next 50 years will bring and how we can better serve all the communities we're in. So we actually have 6 sites in 5 different counties across Northwest Georgia.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. That is great. I know. And you're only the 4th president, really, for this organization. So that shows the longevity of the people who stay behind the reins at Georgia Highlands College and want to continue to see it grow and evolve like it has.
And you plan to be the president through that next 50 years, right?
There are people that would be excited about that, and there were probably people who would be a little depressed to hear that.
I can relate to that.
Well, Don, I know we're getting ready to move to our final 2 segments, but we talked beforehand. You said you'd be willing to hang out and just kind of riff with us for a little bit. You okay with that?
Happy to do that. By the way, I have to tell you, I've started back on Body Pump, which is a fitness program, and I'm struggling walking up and down stairs. Just had to share that with you. Squats and lunges are killing me.
You know, you say that, my wife goes, "Hey, it's great that you're doing these push-ups. What are you doing for your scrawny ass chicken legs?" I'm like, "Stop! I can only do one thing at a time." It's 2 different areas of your body.
Alan, you've seen me. I've seen you. Neither of us should skip leg day.
No, we don't. We don't need to be skipping leg day.
We need leg day.
Oh my gosh! If I could just eat a few pizzas and it would go straight to my thighs. You know, all these women out there going, "Oh my God!" I know I need to go straight to my thighs. So.
See, you missed your opportunity. Spend the first 10 years of your life on ice skates, and you never have to worry about being scrawny again.
Ever again.
Oh, that's right. While you were talking about pond hockey. Oh
yeah.
Man, that's a whole nother segment too. We got to talk about it. It destroys the blades. The sand, the dirt in the ice. It's sure fun, isn't it?
But there is nothing more fun. I mean, the cold air in your face and no rules and
exactly. And you sweat like a pig, and people are like, "What? It's 20 degrees out." Yes, and you're still sweating.
Yeah, yes, and I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Mystery Alaska.
No.
The opening 5 minutes of that movie, as they go through the credits, one of the actors is skating the rivers around the town of Mystery, Alaska. And it is one of the most amazing starts to a movie you'll ever see. It's just incredible scenery, and just seeing him skate through it's just really awesome. It's really hard to even describe how great it is.
Well, people down here think you're crazy when you say that you would drag your snowblower down to the lake behind the house to create your rink, but that is exactly what you did.
Yeah, absolutely. Snow shovels and the whole 9 yards.
You had to. Yeah. You can't play on snow. You got to get the ice. So
Exactly.
All right. Yeah. And we'll save my adventures for where we lived on what we affectionately called Suicide Hill, which would go sledding across the lake.
Done that as well.
Yes.
So, all right. Let's get to our news segment, a segment we like to call
It's No Bullshit.
Walt. You have the first news item.
Well, again, I'm not going to start with news. I'm going to start with another obituary that's been sent to me.
Oh, good. We love that.
So this one actually, I think this one came from my brother. And this
Your
is
brother's
just
dead?
well, no, he probably should be, but this is man, this one you're going to probably want to kill me. Leslie Ray Charping, it was a heck of a guy, and the Carnes Funeral Home gives us this summary of his life. Leslie Ray Popeye Charping was born in Galveston, Texas on November 20th, 1942, and passed away in January, which was 29 years longer than expected and much longer than he deserved.
This is in the obit.
This is the obit. Leslie battled with cancer in his latter years and lost his battle, ultimately due to being the horse's ass he was known for.
Oh, my God.
Oh, no, this is not even scratching the surface on this guy. He leaves behind 2 relieved children, a son, Leslie Roy Charping, and daughter, Sheila Smith, along with 6 grandchildren and countless other victims, including his ex-wife, relatives, friends, neighbors, doctors, nurses, and random strangers. At a young age, Leslie quickly became a model example of bad parenting combined with mental illness and a complete commitment to drinking, drugs, womanizing, and being generally offensive. Leslie enlisted to serve in the Navy, but not so much in a brave and patriotic way, but more as part of a plea deal to escape sentencing on criminal charges.
Hey, y'all, I'm the bad example everybody told you about.
This guy is it, man. While enlisted, Leslie was the naval boxing champion and went on to sufficiently embarrass his family and country by spending the remainder of his service in the Balboa Mental Health Hospital, receiving much-needed mental health care services. Leslie was surprisingly intelligent. However, he lacked ambition and motivation to do anything more than being reckless, wasteful, squandering the family savings, and fantasizing about get-rich schemes. Leslie's hobbies included being abusive to the family, expediting trips to heaven for the beloved family pets, and fishing, which he was less skilled with than the previously mentioned. Leslie's life served no other purpose. He did not contribute to society or serve his community, and he possessed no redeeming qualities besides a quick-witted sarcasm, which was amusing during his sober days.
Wow.
With Leslie's passing, he will be missed for what he never did, being a loving husband, father, and good friend. No services will be held. There will be no prayer for eternal peace and no apologies to the family he tortured. Leslie's remains will be cremated but kept in the barn until Ray the family donkey's wood shavings run out. Leslie's passing proves that evil does in fact die and hopefully marks a time of healing and safety for all.
It's no bullshit.
Oh, my God. You know, they say when you're gone, it won't bother you. But you know what? I don't know that I want that left behind where I've got no editorial say-so whatsoever.
Like, I feel...
If I were going to put money on a haunting, that might be it.
You may be right.
Oh, I ain't done with y'all yet.
Well, I just feel like such a better human being after reading that.
Wow.
I mean, what a piece of garbage that guy is.
And the fact that someone was so pent up that can you pen his obituary? Absolutely.
Oh, I've got this.
Yeah, I got it. All right. I've got the next news one. Next item. It's something from Georgia. I don't know if you saw this on the news. This is a shorter of. I've got a longer one and a shorter one. This one's the shorter one. So we all, my wife's got this idea about getting some goats because they will chew the grass and maybe can be cute and play. A lot of people don't realize goats can be a pretty nasty animal to kind of deal with.
Oh, they're terrible.
Well, in this case, a Georgia sheriff's deputy who was out delivering civil papers had an unexpected encounter with a goat that climbed into her patrol car and started eating the paper she was serving. The Douglas County Sheriff's Office said the deputy was delivering those civil papers and had left the door open to her patrol car on purpose simply because of past incidents or the people she was dropping service papers off sicked the dogs on her and she needed to make a fast getaway.
Yeah, been there.
Body camera footage shared by the sheriff's office shows the deputy getting out of the car and then a goat jumping inside and crossing the driver's side to look at the stack of papers in the passenger side and begin to nibble. The deputy made repeated attempts to get the goat out of the car and at one point ended up actually knocked on the ground.
Oh my gosh.
Not injured, thankfully. The goat did in fact chew up several of the papers, knocked over a beverage, but then decided, I'm done here, hopped down, and wandered away.
It's no bullshit.
Talking about getting your goat at the office, man.
No kidding.
Oh my. Unbelievable.
Don's like, what did I sign up for?
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're having all these deep, meaningful conversations about education and learning, and here
That
these two
part is
knuckleheads start
over.
talking about. Yeah, that part is done.
Wow.
Nothing meaningful from here on in.
You can
Yeah,
go Google this. You can YouTube it. The officer, and it's so, I feel bad because she knows the goat can kick and headbutt, and she's trying. She goes from the driver's side, then to the passenger side, then the driver's side, and trying to coax it out, trying to save the papers. You see her at one point, like reach down and try to pull a stack, try to keep them because he's eating all these papers that she's out there trying to serve to the public as part of her job. And eventually the goat's like, hey, I'll move when I'm ready to move. And that's what he did.
I got to believe that's not in the job description.
No, probably
No.
not.
And you sure don't want to call for backup on something like that.
No.
You'll never hear the end.
Well,
of
how do you do that legitimately? Breaker 19, I got a goat in my car.
it.
Do you believe that? Do you,
I will bet there's a 10 code for that. Like, 1097, and everybody's like, oh man, she's got a goat in her car.
wild animal has endangered her car.
I've got to see the dash cam from that. That's awesome.
If you haven't seen it, it's been on a lot of the Atlanta news, but I figured, you know what? You don't get to see that story every day. I thought that might be a good one to start my side with.
Well, I don't know that I can do better than that, but we'll see what the Omaha World Herald can give us. Drunken driver accused of damaging 3 houses, 4 mailboxes, a vehicle, and a street sign. A 27.
Well, if you're going to do it right.
Oh man, yeah, absolutely. A 27-year-old man driving a pickup truck damaged at least 3 houses, 4 mailboxes, a vehicle, and a street sign while driving drunk Tuesday in Lincoln, Nebraska.
No, alcohol was involved.
I was as shocked as anybody.
I'm shocked.
Officers were called to a hit-and-run crash about 5 p.m. near 48th and Holdridge Street. Officers learned that several mailboxes in a trailer home had been struck by a 1998 Ram 1500 pickup truck that then left the scene. About 2 hours later, police received a report of a pickup truck with 2 flat tires driving erratically down the sidewalk near 40th Street and Cornhusker Highway. A short time later, officers were called to 12th Street and Belmont Avenue to investigate a pickup that was driving through yards and hitting mailboxes. Officers located the pickup nearby after it crashed into a commercial vehicle at 11th Street and Garber about 7:45 p.m. The driver appeared intoxicated, and open beer cans were found strewn throughout the pickup. Okay, get this list of charges. The driver was arrested on suspicion of drunken driving, leaving the scene of an accident, reckless driving, refusing a chemical test, and having a suspended license.
Oh.
Police were still working Wednesday to tabulate the total amount of damage he caused.
It's no bullshit.
Yeah, he's gonna wake up from that one going, "What? What did I do?"
Oh man, that's and at 27.
Okay, everybody, be good to your police officers. Between goats and drunk drivers, it's a challenging job. There's no doubt.
It's a rough one.
They're animals out there, I tell you, animals.
Well, this guy falls into that category. I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's reckless. I'd take the goat, but honestly, I'd rather have the goat.
I'd rather have the goat. The goat is
Yep.
crashing into people's houses.
Yep, the goat. I
Okay,
agree.
I've got the last news story. Here's one that has been affectionately it's another animal story, and you're going to love the nickname they gave it. How many times does this bear need to run away before folks just go, stop, let them hang out. According to a story that I got from an Italian news service, there are some who won't be held back by authority. Whether they use a silver tongue, crafty tricks, or just plain determination and brute force, these people will escape captivity time and time again. So enter Papillon, officially known as M49. He has broken out of prison several times. Now, if the name sounds weird to you, it might be worth noting that Papillon is actually a bear. Christened with the famous name of the prison escape novel, Papillon is living up to his name. He was caught just this week after his latest prison break from the Casteller Wildlife Park in Trentino on July the 27th. Somehow he managed to get through 3 electrified fences and a metal barrier, wrote the API. Maybe they should have named him Houdini because of his impressive escapes. Having spent 42 days evading both animal control and law enforcement, Papillon was finally captured on September 7th. The bear crawled into a tube trap that sealed his fate, at least for now. According to the provincial government, Papillon had lost 88 pounds during his freedom that had allowed him to slip out of his GPS tracking collar, making his captures that much more difficult. Currently, Papillon is residing in Casteller again, where the park is said hard at work reinforcing that enclosure. Now, this segment of the story is called The Shawshank Beardemption. The Casteller staff better do a good job about making sure that they reinforce it, since his previous attempts to hold him have failed miserably. The latest escape was actually the 3rd the bear has executed just this year alone. Papillon was originally caught in the wild in 2019. In June of that year, a man from a region of Italy issued an order for his capture, said the Guardian newspaper. The bear, who had killed livestock, was a threat to people. Acting on orders, the authorities captured Papillon only to have him escape in July of 2019. At that time, wildlife rangers were given permission to shoot to kill M49, which was the name he had been given back then, if he approached human habitation. And in a quote here from Fugati, the fact that the bear managed to climb over an electric fence with 7 wires at 7,000 volts demonstrates this specimen is dangerous and a public safety problem. Well, after leading pursuers on a wild goose chase for months on end, M49 was captured in April of 2020. He managed to escape again only hours later, this time bringing a female companion along. Fast forward 2 months, Papillon, as he's now called, was again in the clutches of rangers. This is when he received the radar collar in case he ran off again. And of course, as we know, that's what he did, but since he had lost so much weight in the wild, he was able to slip out of that collar. Now farmers are realizing, you know what? He hasn't hurt anybody. The fact that he goes after animals, he is, after all, a bear. So they're finally realizing maybe wildlife does best in the wild. And there is a petition out now to say, look, there's no reason to keep him in captivity. Whatever livestock he went after, it's what bears do. Let's just let him out and hope that he lives forever and ever and without having to escape from the clutches of humans once again.
It's amazing. It's astounding. But it's no bullshit.
They just need to relocate that guy.
Do you remember the story we had a couple of weeks ago about the wild turkey that's set up in that garden in Oakland, California?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It reminded me of that. It's like you couldn't figure out how to capture the bird. This time, rather than trying to re-educate it, farmers are realizing, look, just let him out. Let him just go. He hasn't hurt anybody. So
Right. Get him out somewhere safe. And this is not a turkey that, could be, he could be a problem. But this is a bear. He can eat somebody.
Well, but the thing is, he hasn't. Apparently, in all the times he's escaped, all the months on the lam, all the repeated attempts, he has never hurt a single human being. He's only hurt animals, which is kind of what bears will do.
Yeah, I mean, that's
So,
that's
oh,
their
he's
nature.
guilty of being a bear. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, right.
Hey, Ranger.
A bear is a bear is a bear.
What's in
That's
the picnic basket?
Well, and it's just hilarious that he is just over and over again. I mean, wouldn't you think they'd at least put like a 24-hour camera on him? Like something to kind of say, hey, look, let's make
his will to be free, I kind of admire. I mean, he was willing to crawl over, through, and past electrified fences. That's pretty impressive.
That is very impressive. That is
So
freedom finds a way.
All right. Well, we want to try to get to our last segment. I know our guest time is short, so we want to get to what we like to call our entertainment section. And this is where we'll break it up and we'll go around a couple of times. This first time, we're to look at Walt first. What are you watching, or what do you recommend, or maybe what do you not recommend after having battled through something?
Actually, this has been a pretty good week for me as far as what I'm watching. On Apple TV, there's this great show called Ted Lasso. Have you seen or heard of this yet?
No. So I don't have Apple TV yet. I know I'm eligible for it because we just got new phones, but we haven't signed up.
Go ahead and sign up. There's some great stuff there. Ted Lasso is a comedy. Jason Sudeikis plays a guy who's an American football coach.
Oh, is this based off that little comedy sketch?
Yes, that's it.
Entire show out of it?
That's it. And he gets hired as a soccer coach in England by an owner who just wants to destroy the team, basically.
Don, have you ever seen that short that guy did where he was an American football coach and he heard about a football opening in Europe, didn't realize it was soccer, and he goes over there and he's a complete bumbling idiot?
I have not, but I am taking notes furiously at the moment.
It is
Jason
absolutely
Sudeikis, right?
Yes, and it is absolutely hysterical.
Don, go to YouTube, put Jason Sudeikis and soccer coach or football coach. I cried every time I watched it. I've watched that video maybe 10 or 15 times, and I heard they were maybe making a series based on that. I had no idea it was actually out.
There are actually times I've had to rewind 15 seconds because I was laughing enough that I didn't hear the next line. So it's really, really good. You know, just when you kind of go, man, there just aren't any great comedies. It is absolutely fantastic. His assistant coach who he brings with him is like the most deadpan, dry person. And so it's really fantastic. There's also a show called AP Bio that has been on NBC. It stars Glenn Howerton from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Patton Oswalt, the stand-up, and he's been on a bunch of stuff. It's now moved over to the Peacock app, and it has gotten a little, they'll drop a couple of heavier words on this one, and the subject matter can get a little bit less network friendly, but it doesn't get too bad. It stays within their bounds, and it is absolutely hysterical. I've always loved Glenn Howerton on It's Always Sunny, and Patton Oswalt's one of my favorite stand-ups, and they are both awesome in that. So check that out. You can get like a 7-day or 14-day free trial on the Peacock app, so check that out. And then finally, I got around to watching Atlanta Missing and Murdered, The Lost Children on HBO, and it's about the Atlanta missing and murdered children's case from the late 70s, early 80s in Atlanta. And I think they do a pretty good job of presenting both sides of that case, both the Wayne Williams is guilty and Wayne Williams isn't guilty. And then they kind of run a middle ground, which I think is probably accurate, where there may have been two people actually doing these things. But excellent job by HBO Productions in that one. It's called Atlanta Missing and Murdered, The Lost Children.
Great. Don, let's go to you for what are you watching or streaming or binging? It could be something old if you decided, you know what, during this lockdown, we're going to go back and watch WKRP in Cincinnati, whatever it is.
Actually, I'm sure that this is old news for many of your listeners, but for our family, it was relatively new. We have been binging The Umbrella Academy.
Excellent, because the second season just dropped, so it's a perfect time to go back and get season 1.
And we have been loving it. There are so many backstories. It is crazy. A graphic novel brought to life, and I would strongly suggest it to anyone.
That is one I've had on my list, and I just haven't gotten to, so I'll have to move that up the list.
The wife and I loved the first season. We just haven't had a chance to catch up on season 2 yet.
And if you pay me, I won't tell you all of the amazing twists and turns that are going to take place. It's insane. It really is. And so now we've got 2 couples and an individual all in our household watching it simultaneously, but all at different places. So every time a conversation starts, somebody screams, don't say anything more.
Don't say anything. I haven't watched it yet.
Yes,
you love that being in the middle of a streaming relationship where you're streaming at different points of the show. Like, hey, did you mean like, no, don't tell me.
That's right. Where are you going? You're not going to watch Umbrella Academy, are you? Don't even. You got to
Don't
wait
watch
for
without me.
Yes, exactly. The other one, we watched Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Okay, I'm curious because
I
I remember
am
as a
too. I really want to
teenager,
hear what people think about that.
I loved growing up as a teenager seeing the first two Bill and Teds, and then when I heard they were going to make it as the age that the guys are, I was like, "Is this going to work?" I'm dying to hear what you say. Uh-oh.
I
that doesn't
loved-
sound good.
I love the first two films. Pass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It didn't hold up, did it? It's just too hard to do that with the older guys, huh?
And disjointed is probably a good way to describe it. But hey, then again, with my wife, she's never met a movie she didn't like. So, maybe it's just me.
No, maybe.
Well, I thought it was interesting. It came out like last week, right? Week or two ago.
Yes. Yeah.
So there was all that hype that was built around it, and then when it came out, there was nothing. And so I kind of thought it didn't live
internet.
up to it.
I've been seeing those internet ads on Facebook about that Rotten Tomatoes has given it a good score, and that's about all they've been running on.
Yeah. But you don't have a whole lot of people just going, hey, you have to go see this.
You're right. Well, the thing is, a lot of people aren't still venturing to the theater. We've been. I know I've been to the theater multiple times. So, hey, I'm still living. I'm enjoying life. Anything else you've been watching or streaming or anything you'd want to either recommend or tell people to say, use caution?
Go ahead, Alan. Your turn.
Okay, for me, I mentioned it earlier. If you get a chance to, especially if you were a gamer at my age and the Gen Xers growing up with the arcades of the early 80s, the Atari consoles at home, moving to the Nintendo consoles, the Sega console war with Nintendo, all of that, if that sounds even somewhat remotely familiar in your upbringing, check out the mini series. It's a mini documentary series called High Score. Each episode, they go into a different facet of the sort of the folks behind some of the original video games, everything from Pac-Man to Donkey Kong to some of these startups that were happening on college campuses where they would go in and start modifying the motherboards, and then Atari would sue, and then Nintendo wanted to sue people, and then it turns out that halfway through the suit, someone realized, hey, we're suing this kid for this innovation that we should just hire the kid and get him to work for us, and just amazing stories about how that whole background of the video game, from the cabinets in the arcades to the console wars to the PC, it was really, really good. I think personally, because I'm a gamer at heart, they missed some areas. They missed some of the things. Maybe they're going to be working on a second season. There's only 5 episodes. They're about an hour apiece. Well worth it, though, if you grew up in that era of remembering what it was like to go to the arcade, get your first console, playing games, watching the commercials on TV, and seeing the rise of esports. They even kind of touch on that a lot. So really cool documentary series on Netflix. I've moved on to season 5. I'm almost halfway through of Star Trek The Next Generation. I've been continuing to binge through that. And and we're watching Longmire. We're mostly through the first season. I keep feeling like it needs to get its footing still. Every episode seems to be really this tight, compact little mini story, but we're finally starting to get threads that there's a bigger arc out there. So I'm still going through that. We're almost done with season 1. Looking forward to hitting those on my. That's one of those shows that my wife's already watched it and she liked it so much she's rewatching it with me. So we do that as sort of a couple thing. Every couple of nights we'll watch 2 or 3 episodes back to back. So really enjoying so far the development of Longmire.
I was going to say, you get through season 1, you better have your track shoes on because it gets rolling.
Good.
And all I can say, Alan, is who would have known that much could happen in one county in Wyoming?
my wife said, when I got done, who's left alive at this point? Everyone's been murdered.
So I used to mock Longmire for that. And then we started watching Haven. Have either of you watched Haven?
Oh, I've heard Haven's a bloodbath.
I had not.
It is, and it's amazing, but never mind. More happens in Haven, a small town in Maine, than happens in an entire county in Wyoming. So I stand corrected.
Well,
wow.
I think the yardstick on that is still Murder, She Wrote, where every single person that lady met got murdered.
Don't move to Cabot Cove.
Yeah.
Don't hang out with her.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, it's her. She's the problem.
It's her. She's the thread that everything swirls around. She pulls this all in. She's actually a demonic force. She makes these things happen and then writes about it. Walt, I know we've got two more areas we like to look at on the entertainment side. And we don't have to have something if we're not, because sometimes reading is harder with all that's going on in our lives. You got anything that you're reading right now? Any books that you would recommend?
Well, I said I was going to start it last week. I am actually starting it this week, but I'm going to start the making of Tombstone. So I will have that to talk about the next couple weeks. But I kind of wrapped up 2 or 3 books that I was reading, and I'm about to start diving into a couple more.
Don, I know you sort of hinted at one earlier, talked a little bit about it. What are you reading right now?
Okay, Happy by Design by Paul Dolan. Great research about how happiness is about the combination of fun and meaning, and it's a great way to make you kind of reflect on what it is that really makes you happy in life. And Think Small by Service and Gallagher, and it is the surprisingly simple ways to reach big goals. So I'm not much for fiction. Our family is split right down the middle. Half are pure fiction and half are pure non. I am in that non camp, but I find both of these to be really fascinating reads that are making me think about how I get things done and how I perceive my life.
Both of those sound like books I would like to read. I actually have one of those weird left, right, even dominance brains. I can spend half my time diving into documentary, history, nonfiction, self-help, analysis, and the other half reading fantasy novels and science fiction. It's just the weirdest. I got the weirdest brain in the world. Ask Walt.
Yes, you do. I'm glad you finally embraced that.
Wait, the man with 2 brains. That was a movie.
I'm Steve Martin. Who knew?
Yeah.
I just don't have Steve Martin's money. I'm actually not in the middle of reading anything at the moment, but because we just finished Bosch, I mentioned that a couple of episodes back. I've always liked the works of Michael Connelly. My wife is a member of the Friends of the Library, which is an organization in our county that tries to do some fundraisers to help make sure that we're recycling and circulating and bringing up money for programs for the library. And so a lot of times they'll have these hardback book sales where they may have bought maybe 16 copies of the hot book, but now that it's been in its run for a few years, they don't need that many in the library. And so we get first dibs on them being Friends of the Library members. And so we have restocked a lot of our local library. We do believe in having books in the house. Well, you know, you've seen our bookshelves. They grow. Every year we got one whole wall just in our living room of nothing but floor-to-ceiling books. And I'm going to dive back into Michael Connelly. If you've never read anything by Michael Connelly, I think he's fabulous. He's definitely got an eye and an ear for police lingo, on investigations, on detective work. He's fair when it comes to there are bad cops, but there's a lot of good cops. There's a lot that goes on into police work. And I love how so much of what Michael Connelly bases his stories on is if you do the good detective work, you've got the notes, you've got the murder book, you're paying attention to the details, you can get the answers. It's just, how do you look at the answers that's right staring you in the face? And I've always loved an author who can do that they don't have to trick me at the last second. They don't have to come up with some switch ending that I didn't see coming because there was never anything telegraphed. It's all right there if you would just pay attention and read. And I love those kind of books.
Yeah, well, and I know several cops who read Michael Connelly, so that speaks a lot to his talent and his ability to really, like you said, kind of speak the language of folks in that world. And
they're easy reads. They may be some heavier subjects, but they're easy reads. They're not like a textbook or something that you're going to have where you have to kind of read a chapter and then go walk away and digest it for a while. These are very good, fun reads on a rainy day or when it gets cold, like this kind of season coming up. I'll probably start catching up on my reading in the fall because I love that when you kick the fireplace on, maybe put some instrumental, maybe new age or something in the background or Christmas music when we get closer and just read a good book. There's nothing, that's simple, small, right? Small things.
Exactly.
All right, well, we're going to wrap up because I know we've got to finish this up. What are you listening to? It could be music, could be album, and do we have any podcast shout-outs?
I'm going to revisit one that I had mentioned a few weeks ago, and I continue to listen to it. And it is by a couple of the guys who were on the show Arrested Development, and I'm drawing a blank. The guy was also Jason Bateman, It's Jason Bateman, Sean Hayes, and Will Arnett, Smartless. There are a couple episodes that I haven't been as thrilled with, but I didn't really like the guest, I think was the problem. But their show is really, really good. So if you're not listening to that, check it out. Another one that had gotten mentioned by one of our guests that I started listening to yesterday is called Wind of Change. And
about how the CIA wrote the song that the Scorpions made popular to try to help with the fall of the Berlin Wall?
Yes.
My God, yeah.
I was cutting grass yesterday and I made it through 3.5 episodes. I mean, it really grabbed me. They did a great job on this. And the story, you kind of start thinking there's no way this is true, but then it's like, no, it's our government and it's this could be true. I mean, knowing some of the stuff my dad dealt with, even I'm like, yeah, I mean, and I spent some time behind the Iron Curtain and this has readability. You know, there's some things to think about on this, and it's just very well done. The interviews are really good. They go get CIA former employees and they're interviewing them. And it's funny, on a couple of the questions that they ask the actual CIA people, they start stammering and they won't answer. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, they really hit something. So it is a fascinating podcast. And again, it's called Wind of Change. It's about the Scorpion song, Wind of Change, that was basically a big propaganda song that was sent behind the Iron Curtain and helped kind of turn the tide on the Soviet bloc and their reign over the eastern part of Europe.
Isn't that amazing?
That's very cool.
I've got that one queued up. I have not listened to any of them, but I have subscribed because I thought it'd be fun to go back and listen. And my problem is I've got so many podcasts that come out weekly. I feel like I can barely keep up with them. I just need to say, you know what? I'll get to those. I want to get because this is a limited show. It's not like it keeps going.
Well, and for me, it was just I want something I can listen to an hour or two of it, and then I got hooked. And so while I was cooking dinner, I was listening to it. I'll probably listen to it on the way home. I mean, it's really good, and it's really fascinating. And even if at the end they go, oh, no, this is all baloney, it'll be a good story.
Awesome. Anything else you're listening to? Any other shout-outs?
We've got so many. We are going to record this week with the guys who do the Marine Corps Minute, and they're going through a bunch of movies about the Marine Corps. Right now, they are talking Gunny Highway, and
there's no movie called Gunny Highway.
Well, they're talking about the great Gunny Highway, and
of course.
And so we're going to be on with those guys this week. So you might want to catch up. It is called the Marine Corps Minute, right?
The Marine Corps Movie Minute.
The Marine Corps Movie Minute. And those guys are hilarious. Don't listen around your kids.
They are former Marines themselves.
They are former Marines. And you're never really a former Marine. You're always a Marine. So definitely check them out. Those are great guys. And their show is absolutely hilarious.
And they are doing, if you don't know still, it's Heartbreak Ridge they're in the middle of.
Yes. Yeah, Heartbreak Ridge, one of my favorite.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. We've been back and forth for their whole season here. Ironic, the episode that came out just a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned having started to listen, and I said, yeah, they've been reaching out to us, and there's an email waiting for us saying, you guys available? So, yeah, we're going to be, at the time this drops, we will have already recorded, but I have no idea what their release schedule is, so check that one out.
Well, in the 3 minutes that we get, I would have chosen those 3 minutes if they asked.
Well, are there any bad 3 minutes in any of Heartbreak Ridge?
No, but this is uniquely good because it's the credit card scene.
I would have almost wanted the next couple of minutes where the sergeant or the major gets shown up by the general who shows up.
Oh, that is a great minute. Yeah, those are great.
Logistics, huh? Do you like it? Well, why don't you consider going back there?
Well, but we also get the great line of, just because you're holding my hand doesn't mean we're going to be taking long showers.
You'll be taking long showers, which is an homage to when they first showed up, if you remember.
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry, we got to make sure because Don's got to go. I can hear him going, I got to go, guys. Don, is there anything you're listening to right now, whether it's a podcast, could be on anything or music-wise, anything that's in your audio repertoire?
Absolutely. So when it comes to music, I am omnivorous. I will consume most anything, but my youngest has turned me on to the Jeb Bush Orchestra. 1980,000 is one of them. They are an apolitical instrumental funk band from Boston. And I thought, are you kidding me? And I loved it. Okay, so definitely if you're going to hear any one thing, listen to 1980,000. That's one of theirs. And then
1980,000. I love it.
that's the
I'm
name of
pulling
the
up
song.
YouTube right now. As soon as we're done, I got to
Do
check
it.
that out.
And then Doorway by Wanderwild is a very good one as well. And oh, by the way, my son's future son-in-law and I were supposed to see the Stones for the second time this year. That was postponed. And my wife and I were going to see Jimmy Buffett in Columbia, South Carolina. That was postponed. So I've got to have a little humor in my life. So No Such Thing as a Fish. If you've never listened to that podcast, it's out of England. It's part trivia and a whole lot of humor.
No Such Thing as a Fish. I will give that a try. I got some good friends from the UK. We had them on with us a couple of weeks back from the podcast 60MW is what they go by now, an entertainment-based podcast. And I love their sense of humor. I've always been drawn to that sort of wry British sarcasm and snark, and I think that's a good one for me to put in my subscription list now. Okay, as for me, I've been continuing to catch up with a lot of our good friends. Bad Cop put out a brand new episode this week. That was great. 60MW has decided starting this month, they're going to a 2-day-a-week set schedule. They used to just release, sometimes they would have 3 episodes in a week, then maybe 4, then they maybe go 2 or 3 weeks with nothing. And they've decided, you know what? We've got enough shows. We can actually become a little more structured. And they're going with a Monday, Thursday release schedule, leaving a surprise Saturday as an option if they've got something they popped in or they want to kind of catch up if they've got a couple of shows that are sort of getting pushed back. So they are going to go to a 2-day-a-week format. So they have 2 shows a week they're going to release. So check out 60MW. Really, you're looking forward to the next Metallica show that's going to be coming out. I got the release date on that one. It's going to be the first Thursday, I believe, in October, which might be October 8th. I think it's a second Thursday. So okay, the first falls on a Thursday. So October the 8th. Okay. If you are a fan of what we've done already with the first 2 Metallica shows, that particular episode that you heard me and Chris talk about 2 weeks ago in our episode with Chris Jellyman and Ben Ford from that podcast group, we now have a release date. So it's kind of neat because now that we have a schedule, it's not much easier to promote what's coming up. And then you kind of know, okay, Mondays and Thursdays are my 60MW days. I can listen to something else on other days, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, I'm going to have to catch up on those. I'm not a huge Metallica fan, but just hearing the two of y'all talk about it, I was like, okay, this is going to be a podcast worth listening to.
I will forward you what Ben sent me today as far as audio, sent to me and Chris, because Ben is not a Metallica fan either. But he's like, I like you guys. We get along. I feel like I owe you a listen. And he actually said, I'll let his words speak for himself, but the tone of it is, I'm hooked. And I think that's all I need to hear. You don't have to fall in love with the band. We're not trying to convince you to fall in love with the band. But I think when you get done listening, you go, okay, I understand why people love this band, if that makes sense.
Oh, sure. Well, and I keep hoping that somebody will come along and do a Grateful Dead podcast along that same line that I can at some point be a guest on. Because when you love something like that, when you're passionate about it, when it's something that's super meaningful to you, it's impacted your life in some way, you can't help but get drawn into that. So
right.
I think that that's one of the things I'm looking forward to is hearing you guys talk about that.
Well, and if you remember what we talked about when we had them on is sometimes if you've got really engaging conversation and you're having fun listening to people just chatting, you may not be able to follow everything because that's not your passion, but there's something still infectious about people having a good time chatting and you're sort of eavesdropping anyway.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, I mean, to me, that's one of the things I love about podcasts and about being a podcaster is that it is really just, you kind of pick a topic, pick a person, and you're just hanging out, having a good time, you know?
Yep.
So
2 more shout outs quickly. I want to give to, actually maybe 3. I want to give Radio Labyrinth some love. Those guys are always awesome. They're so much fun and they've been so good to us. And I know we're going to be getting some of their voices on with us in the coming weeks and months. I want to give a shout out to Geek to Me Radio, always retweeting and sharing our stuff. And of course, to our friend BK, also retweeting and sharing our stuff. He puts his Escape Pod out now. If you missed the Saturday show, He sort of tweaks it, adds some commercials. Some of the commercials might not even be safe for radio broadcast, but they're okay as a podcast. So it's like he says, it's like taking the show and then giving it the bionics of the Bionic Man, sort of soups it up. So check out the BK on the Air Escape Pod podcast.
He kind of went from 0 to 100 miles an hour on the whole podcasting thing, didn't he?
Once he started realizing, oh, editing, I can do that. Oh, look what I can. Oh, look at this. Oh, and now he's all in. So
yeah. So
how long have we been trying to convince him to do it?
Oh, 10 years.
10 years. A decade before there was podcasting.
Even before. Yeah, long before. So we just told him to send it out on tape.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for us. Before we can close it out, we've got to get a little housekeeping in. Walt, how do people learn not only a little bit more about maybe the show, but ways they can help, maybe even help us promote the show?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing I'm going to encourage you to do as soon as possible is to go out to patreon.com/thewilderride and listen to our other stuff that we've done. And it's usually behind the paywall, but with COVID and everything, we wanted you all to be able to enjoy it while you're in quarantine. That won't be there forever, in the free market. So take a listen to our work on The Big Lebowski and The Princess Bride and all these other great movies.
As someone reminded me, The Princess Bride with the Princess Wives joining us.
That's right. So you definitely want to check that out. Also, when you're there on Patreon, there are some ways that you can help us financially. We do have some costs that come along with this. We're working on getting a sponsor or two and some other things maybe, but definitely if you have a couple of dollars you can throw our way, that would be greatly appreciated. And you can see how to do that there on Patreon. Again, patreon.com/thewilderride. Also, go to facebook.com/thewilderride and follow us there, and then hit the button to join our listeners group. If you're not a part of the listeners group, you want to be. It's no politics, no nonsense. Well, I say that. There's a lot of nonsense, but there's no politics or news or anything like that. It's all entertainment, all stuff we talk about on the show.
Yeah, and funny memes, silly jokes,
absolutely.
Maybe trivia. It's just fun. It's fun entertainment. It's escapism.
It is. And one of my friends who is obnoxious politically sent me a note one day and he said, hey, somebody just posted something political on the Wilder Ride. So I jumped over and sent that person a note and took it down. And so I was like, that is great that even my really hardcore political friends are all in on this just being a fun, safe place to have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we want. We need the escape. This is a lot of fun. That's why we bring the guests on. I have been really digging season 3. I know this was supposed to be a second show to what we were supposed to do. Hopefully we can figure out how to make our schedules work in the next season to kind of go back and revisit if we want to still do the Silver Streak flick. Hopefully we do, or maybe we decide to do something else. But for now, I'm loving having this talk show.
Well, I am too. And I hope that our audience is. I think we're getting some great feedback from a lot of our friends. And if this is something that you are enjoying, please take a second to forward this out, to send it out to your friends on Twitter or on Facebook, or if you have a friend you're like, man, this guy really needs to hear this show. Take a second just to forward it on, and that'll help us a lot. We're building a great audience, and if you have somebody who you think would enjoy it, by all means, please share it with them. And that is probably the biggest thing you can do to help us out right now.
Rate, review, share. 3 ways that you can do something for us that doesn't cost you anything, but maybe a few seconds of your time.
Yep, absolutely. And we've all got a few seconds of time, or else we wouldn't be listening to this podcast.
There you go. All right. That's going to do it for this week. Don't forget, come back next week. Every Tuesday, a brand new episode drops. You don't want to miss who's going to join us next right here in our Listeners Lounge. Wow, we learned so much, and then we just became absolute goofballs at the end, didn't we?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, and then there's Don going, I gotta watch my clock. These guys, they said to be done at 6. I gotta go.
I just love it, guys. Love the opportunity.
Well, Don, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. And
yeah, really enjoy getting your reward, and we will definitely have you back. There's still so much we can talk about.
I love it. Thank you, guys. Stay in touch.
All right, thanks, Don.
Yep, ciao.